Hello, 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 hello. Welcome everybody to today. What is our talk today? Today is our final talk of the series. If it's your first time joining us, welcome. My name is Kareem. I am a fourth year medical student currently intercalating at Loughborough, and I'm also the co-director of the TAMS network. So yes, thank you guys for joining. Today is, like I said, going to be the final talk of our series, Tips to Jumpstart Your Medical School Journey. And it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. I was just telling everybody in the team how excited I am for this talk, especially because it's a topic that I think is really important and definitely isn't addressed enough at medical school. So before we get started with the talk, I'll just quickly explain the agenda for tonight. I'm going to introduce who TAMS is, what we do, and then I will introduce kind of who the speaker is. And after the speaker has done her incredible talk, we are going to have a quick Q&A. So throughout the talk, if everyone could just think of one or two questions and then just drop them in the chat, that'd be really, really helpful. And then we'll just get to them at the end of the talk. So if you don't know, what is TAMS? TAMS stands for the Aspiring Medic Support. And we are a group of medical students who aim to support other medical students. That is the essence of what we do. We're all about supporting students from a low socioeconomically disadvantaged background in order to bridge the gap, bridge the attainment gap that is seen within medical school. So we do this through a number of ways. Most importantly today is TAMS Talks. So it's all about talks that support students once they're in medical school so that you can become the best doctors, the best medics, just the best surgeons, the best people possible, basically. And today's talk is all about how to manage stress while at medical school. And this is a topic that is, it doesn't go away, really. It doesn't go away, whether you're first year, second year, third year, wherever point that you are in your medical school journey, managing stress is something that you're going to need to do. So that's why I like the talk. That's why I think the talk is really important. I think it's going to be great. And today's speaker is definitely the right person to be doing this talk. So our speaker, Isla, is a fourth year medical student at Barts, and through her role as a HLA scholar and deputy chair for welfare at the BMA, she is super passionate, super passionate about well-being and burnout and how, well, not burnout, she's passionate about burnout, but passionate about how to avoid burnout and how to cope with stress while at medical school. So without further ado, I give you guys Isla. She's going to absolutely smash this talk. Make sure you're thinking of questions throughout the talk. And yeah, I'll let Isla take it away.
Thank you so much for that, Kareem. So let me just share my screen. Okay, so like Kareem said, today I'm going to be talking about how to manage stress at medical school. So let's just go ahead and start. So first, a bit about myself. I'm a fourth year med student at Barts. I'm also the deputy chair for welfare at the BMA. So that means I do a lot of work both within my uni and at a more national scale, looking at student support and well-being just more generally. I'm also a scholar on the Healthcare Leadership Academy this year. And one of my projects with them is actually looking at burnout in medical professionals and medical students alike, and just looking at how we can kind of open up the conversation around stress and well-being in medicine a bit more than what's being done already. Aside from that, more importantly, I really like to run. I go on a lot of long runs. I picked up biking this summer, so I did a lot of that with my dad. And then I also paint. And one of the reasons I'm telling you all this is because I think it's really important to have interests outside of just your uni work, because university is about so much more than just your grades and how well you do in your exams. And actually, when I was putting this presentation together, it reminded me of my very first lecture at med school, just like right at the beginning of first year. And it was a prank lecture. So basically there was this lecturer who stood at the front of the room and basically just told us everything that was stereotypically expected of you as a med student. So he was saying things like, oh, now that you're a medic, you've got all these expectations, you're held up to all these standards. You have to spend this much time studying every week. You can't sleep, you can't enjoy things outside of uni. So all of the very like hardcore messaging that usually comes with med school and what students really associate with medicine, I guess, in general as well. And I think the funniest thing about that was there was this student sitting at the front of the room and he had his phone out. And I mean, obviously he was posing as a student, he was part of the prank, but basically the lecturer walked up to him and he took his phone off him and just chucked it in the bin. And everyone was so shocked and a bit scared as well about what was going on. But I think that was the point where everyone realized that it wasn't actually a real lecture. But I just thought it was a really effective way of just showing us what medical school isn't meant to be like. So that was the whole point of the lecture. Like, this is exactly what med school isn't supposed to be like. And it's about so much more than just how well you do in your exams or what your grades are like. So talking about stress management, the way that I decided to kind of structure the presentation was similar to the way that we're taught at med school, just because I thought it might make it a bit more interesting and hopefully a bit more relatable as well. So start talking about stress management, I guess the first thing is, how do you prevent it in the first place? Because like we're always taught, prevention is better than cure. And to me, this is really about just like identifying what helps you and what works for you. So what helps you relax and kind of switch off from work, and just dedicating time to that every day. Just set aside, it doesn't even have to be long. It can be as little as 20 minutes where you just take time for yourself. So, and that doesn't even have to be anything remotely productive. It could just be like watching a funny YouTube video or calling a friend, calling family. So just something every day that you do for yourself, I think is key in preventing stress further down the line. And talking about this idea of prophylaxis, it's about doing small things every day that are gonna help you in the longer run. I know it sounds cliche and I know it's easier said than done, but it really does add up, the way you spend your time in the day. So moving on, the actual management of stress. So just like how you manage anything acutely, there's always the A to E response. So I kind of tried to come up with something like that for stress management. So a lot of the times things don't always go to plan and things can get sprung on you last minute, kind of like doing a talk on stress management. So I thought, what can you do in the immediate term to try and help yourself deal with any stress? And I came up with this A to E mnemonic. So, A, awareness. So, being aware of what exactly is making you stressed acutely. Is it something that suddenly come up? Is it something that didn't go to plan? Maybe you didn't do as well as you thought you would on something. So having an awareness of what exactly the issue is and why it's making you feel that way. Um, and also maybe why it's happened. So if you didn't do as well as you thought you would, then being aware of maybe why you didn't do as well as you thought you would. Maybe you didn't study in the right way, even though you did spend a lot of time studying. So just having an awareness of the situation, I guess. B, building a plan. So now that you know what the issue is and you've identified the issue, how are you going to go about mitigating it and managing your stress? So build a plan about what the next step of action is. Okay, so you didn't do as well on this test as you thought you would. What do you need to do going forward to make sure you do better in the future? C was create space. So once you know what the problem is and you know how you're going to go about addressing it, make the time to actually do that. So it's very easy to know you're stressed and know what you need to do, but then not act on it as well as you could because you haven't made the right adjustments to allow yourself to succeed in the future. So just create space. Maybe it's setting aside an extra half hour where you spend time reading about a topic you're not as sure about, or creating some kind of timetable for yourself where you're able to schedule things in and better see how you can manage your time. D was don't panic. So I think being stressed and panicking at the same time makes seeing things clearly a lot more difficult. So don't panic, try and take a few deep breaths and just deal with the situation at hand, and don't let it build up into such a big thing in your mind. And then E was escalate. So now that you have a plan and you've made the time to execute the plan, actually go out and do it, and don't just let yourself worry about it for too long. And then moving on to the longer term management, kind of like the systems based approach that we get in lectures. So try and think about how you can manage yourself as a whole, because you're a person and you're human and you have to take care of yourself first and foremost. So starting with your mind, prioritize your sleep. I'm not sure if any of you have read it, but Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, I'd really recommend. It's such a good book, and it really opens your mind, opens your eyes to the importance of sleep, and it makes you take a step back and reconsider what you're doing, and how sleep is actually affecting you, which is something that was quite surprising for me when I first read the book. Um, Also, take the time to unwind. I know I've said it a few times, but really just taking time out for yourself during the day, um, because it does add up and it does make a difference in the longer term. I've written mindfulness down, and that doesn't necessarily mean some kind of meditation or yoga. It could literally just be being aware of your emotions and when you're starting to feel stressed out, and being mindful of what you can do to help yourself relax. And then I've also written know when to ask for help. So it's really important that if you've tried everything and you're doing things to help yourself relax, you're calling friends, you're calling family, um, you're creating space, you're planning ahead, but you're still stressed out, then it's important to know when you should reach out for help. And we'll come back to it later, but I thought it was a good place to put this in as well. And then the heart, spend time with loved ones and friends. I mentioned this before, but the people around you really do make the biggest difference when it comes to dealing with stress and anxiety. And then the gut, try and be more conscious about what you eat. It sounds really small and it sounds like it wouldn't make a huge difference, but actually what you put into your body does make a huge difference to the way that you feel and the way that you act, especially longer term. And then muscles, make the time for some form of movement every day, even if that's just walking down to Tesco's and back. Um, Especially with things moving online and a lot of things on Zoom, it's so easy to just sit in one spot at home all day. Trust me, I've been there. And just making time for some form of movement really does make the world of difference. So the second part of this talk was about virtual medical school, um, because like I mentioned before, so many things have moved online now. And last year I intercalated and pretty much the whole degree was online. And Zoom fatigue is very real, speaking from experience. So a few things that I found really helped me when it came to dealing with virtual university was, first and foremost, establishing some sort of boundaries. It's so easy now that you're doing things from home, for the stresses you have at university to kind of stay with you at home. It's not like you can leave them somewhere and then come home and relax. So establish boundaries. If you work from 9 to 5, then maintain that schedule. Just work from 9 to 5 and try not to let that run over into your own time. And then number 2, leave the house. So like I said before, it's so easy to just sit at home nowadays, especially with lectures being online. And it just having some sort of fresh air or change of scenery can make a huge difference. Number 3, maintaining connections. So it can be really easy now that things are online to kind of isolate yourself. You're busy with lectures all day, and then you've got work to do, reading to do after lectures, and it can become the easy option to stay home and not go out and see friends. But maintaining friends and those connections that you have with people um, really can help when it comes to managing your stress and managing just like online university in general. It's so easy to isolate yourself in that kind of situation. And I think also with the lockdown ending and restrictions easing, it's so much easier now to go out and see friends. So definitely take advantage of that. Number 4 was stick to a routine. So try and stay consistent with the time you wake up and go to bed. I think this is going back to the sleep point, but making sure you take care of your physical health, even if you're just at home, is really key here. Um, and then another thing with sticking to routine is if you'd usually go to the gym after university, then stick to that schedule. After you finish online university, go to the gym or go and see a friend or go to the shops. Do something that you do, the things that you would usually do, even though things are online. And then number 5 was to have a dedicated workplace. Obviously, this can't always happen, but if you can and if it's possible, then maybe working somewhere outside of your bedroom or even outside of your house. You could go to the library, go to a cafe, work in the living room instead. I think it just helps, again, establish those boundaries and prevent you from bringing the stresses of work back to your home, really. And then the next bit was just a bit about imposter syndrome. So this is Naomi Osaka. She's one of the best tennis players in the world at the moment. And she recently had to pull out of the French Open because of her own struggles with mental health. And she tweeted about it and how basically she basically tweeted about how she always felt she wasn't good enough or she didn't deserve to be where she is. And the last bit is the bit that I highlighted is, I think, basically the essence of imposter syndrome, which is why me? So questioning why you're there and whether you deserve to be there. I think this is really big, not just in like celebrities and athletes, but also in just medical students in general. I think throughout school, medical school is put on such a pedestal, and then once you're there, you're surrounded by such smart people and intelligent, amazing people, and then you start to question whether you actually deserve to be there in the first place. And I think that's something that's very common throughout medical school, and a lot of people go through. Some of the things that have really worked for me is just remembering that you're here for a reason. You got into medical school for a reason. You smashed your interviews for a reason. You did well on the UK CAT and the BMAT for a reason. You didn't get here by accident, basically. And also, people always appear more confident than they really are. So you can't always trust what you see, although someone might seem like they're doing really well at university and getting all the grades and juggling everything, juggling extracurriculars as well. You never really know what's going on in their head. So just be kind to yourself, be kind to others, embrace it, embrace the experience. You're surrounded by really diverse intelligent, interesting people. So just have fun, I guess, and let go of the idea of perfectionism. Not everything has to go according to plan. And if all else fails, just fake it till you make it, really. Um, and you learn and you grow throughout your time at university. And I think one thing that I've really come to realize is that imposter syndrome is so common, and I think everyone goes through it to some degree. And then this is the last slide. It's just a few useful resources when it comes to support and counseling. So I know the BMA offers a counseling and peer support service to doctors and med students. And it's really accessible. They have a phone number, and then they have an online portal that you can use their online chat function for as well. Also, every university has a counseling and support service. So I'd really encourage you guys to reach out to them if you feel like you need any help or someone to talk to. Money for Med Students, it's a organization that is specifically dealing with the stresses, like financial stresses amongst medical students. So they're a very helpful resource as well. And then non-medical resources are things like the Samaritans and also Mind Health. Both of them offer support lines and online chat services if you ever feel like you need to reach out to someone. And yeah, that's all I had. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Isla. We have a few questions coming through. Yeah, that was really good. I liked how you like kind of made it apply to medicine in the sense of like, you know, you broke it down into the different areas of effectively the areas of your life that would be causing you stress, and like the different areas that you should think about, like I don't know how I can't explain it the way you explained it, but the different parts of your body, you know, like the heart, the mind, what else was it, like the muscles?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like a few of those things definitely jumped out to me. Like I think in terms of the heart stuff, like making time to see friends and stuff, um, you certainly it's very easy to lose sight of that, like you're saying, when you're studying online or when you're doing medicine and you've just got a huge amount of content. And something that's become clear to me this year in intercalating is how much I didn't do that before. And I didn't even realize it. It was just the norm that I wouldn't see people as often. And now I'm here making a lot more time for all of those different elements. So yeah, I thought that was really, yeah, quite insightful. So some of the questions that were coming through, let's see. I want to make sure that we're not reading the same thing. Okay, so how the question here for you is, how do you manage all of your extracurricular roles without feeling overwhelmed? So I think a lot of people have stuff that they want to do and they take on a lot of different roles or committee positions or hobbies in an attempt to, I guess, manage the stress or manage life, and then it starts to feel like a bit too much. So what do you do if that happens? Have you ever experienced that?
I think for me, the big thing with managing loads of responsibilities is just time management. So obviously university work comes first, so prioritizing that and prioritizing revision, but then setting aside, so for example, for BMA work, knowing that in the evening from, let's say, like 6 to 6:30, I'm just going to send off these emails. So just scheduling it in at the beginning of the day, knowing when you're going to sit down and work on something, for me really helps. And then also, I guess, just not letting it take over your life. So sitting back, relaxing, revising, I think, effectively. So don't spend time just going over the same things again and again, but work on what you don't know and then move on. So don't dwell on things. And yeah, I guess just relaxing, understanding when you need to take a step back and not letting it overwhelm you.
Okay. Another question. This is a question for me now. Just in terms of like the time management, would you are you doing that like daily? You would kind of like wake up in the morning and then you'd plan your day, or is that like a weekly thing that you would do?
Um, I try to do it every day. It doesn't always happen, but like even if it's just one thing you know you need to get done today, like I know I've been putting these emails off for the last 3 days and I need to sit down and do them today, then making sure you like prioritize that and just knowing, okay, from this time to this time, I'm going to sit down and I have to get this done today. So having things that you prioritize, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. So kind of get into the habits of the habit of like making like time, kind of making sure you're aware of what you have to do with your time, and
Mhm.
then prioritizing all the different things that you have to do in like just in order of importance or in order of like urgency as well.
Mhm.
That's kind of how you approach your extracurricular stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, brilliant. Then the next question, this is a small one for me. What was the name of the sleep book? Like that, just out of
Oh,
curiosity.
it's called Why We Sleep.
Why We Sleep. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a long book, or can I
Uh,
read it quickly?
no, it's not that long. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not too long, no.
All right, I'm gonna make a note of it because it sounded interesting. But yeah, back to the proper questions. Somebody has just asked if you'd be able to speak a bit more about mindfulness and like ways that people can kind of cultivate that, basically.
Um, so I think the main thing that comes to mind when I think of mindfulness, the first thing that comes to mind, sorry, is probably like meditation and yoga, but that I know that's not always what works for people, and not everyone finds that useful. So I guess the main thing with mindfulness is just knowing, being mindful of what helps you. So whether that's going out for a run, going to the gym, listening to music, it could even be something like watching a YouTube video or talking to a friend. So it doesn't always have to be mindfulness in the traditional sense. It's literally just a way for you to um, be mindful of stepping back from work and taking time for yourself.
Okay. Yeah. So taking that pause every now and then to
Mhm.
really think about the things that serve you or like what gives you energy.
Mhm.
And it's good. Yeah, like you said, for some people that might be, I don't know, exercise. Other people it might be meeting a friend or I don't know, going for a walk or anything. But just making sure you take that time to do the step back and to do that reflection for yourself is
Yeah,
what you need.
exactly.
Okay, okay, cool. I feel like I'm learning like as we're talking. I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna add that one in and add that one in. Um, one more question here is what do you feel has been your biggest challenge regarding time management, and how were you able to overcome it?
Um, I think for me, the biggest challenge was trying to find enough time to do university work, so to revise alongside having other responsibilities, so like the BMA work or the HLA work. Because often I found that things seemed a lot more urgent with like the other responsibilities that I had than doing the actual revision, because I know a lot of the times with medical school, exams are like at the end of the year or they're only every few months. So you kind of put things off until you really have to revise. So I think that was my biggest challenge. And then how I overcame that was just, like I mentioned earlier, revising more effectively. So I kind of realized that I was going over the same few things again and again, and I wasn't spending enough time moving on to the next thing or revising things I hadn't revised yet, just because I was worried I'd forget what I already revised. But just like trusting yourself that you learned it and you did enough, and just moving on to the next thing and not wasting time doing the same thing again and again, I think for me.
Okay, I
Mhm.
think what you said like really reminds me of um there's a thing where you rank stuff in terms of like I think it's importance and urgency,
Mhm.
and that you can have a lot of things that come up and feel very urgent, especially if you're working in an organization and people need things from you like the next day or something. But they're not especially important. Like, they're not tasks that should take priority over your revision, for example, because that ultimately will make you a lot more stressed because you'll feel like you're never revising, or if you are revising, you feel like you're not doing the right content, and you just kind of go around in a negative circle. Right. Yeah. I don't know what my point was there. It just spoke to me. I feel like I waffled in the end, but yeah. Um, I had a question. Well, it's kind of a question, kind of a comment, just in regards to imposter syndrome. And I think it is like a really good thing that you mentioned in the talk, because it's not often spoken about in medicine. It's kind of, like you said, something I feel a lot of people go through at some point in medical school, but it's not really addressed. Um, and I just wanted to see if you could like kind of explore that a little bit more in terms of how you've dealt with it, like how it impacted you, and then how you feel you've dealt with it or potentially are dealing with it. If you'd be able to like, yeah, share your experience.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, like you said, I think it's quite a big thing at medical school, and a lot of it's often swept under the carpet just because everyone is it's almost like everyone's competing once you get to med school, and it's quite relentless. And I think coming from a school environment where getting into medical school is kind of put up on a pedestal, once you're there you're like, okay, I'm here, but am I good enough to be here? And you're surrounded by all these intelligent people, and it can be quite a hard experience to deal with. My own experience with it, I think I probably felt it most in first year, just because the step up from school to university was such a big shock to the system, and all of a sudden you don't really have much guidance at all at university when it comes to lectures and managing your time, compared to school where you were kind of guided through everything and everything was handed to you almost. Um, and the way I dealt with it was just, I guess, making the right friends, having the right people around you, supporting you, and also realizing that you're there for a reason and you didn't get in by accident. And um, yeah, and you deserve to be there. You did the work to be there, so you deserve to be there.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, definitely believing in your source. You know, you have
Mm.
to get to a point, and it's hard, especially once you just joined, to remind yourself that you are worthy of being there and you belong, especially when you feel overwhelmed or you feel like you're not understanding content the way everybody else seems to be understanding it.
Yeah.
Um, I remember like first year and feeling like some of these anatomy stuff was just going over my head, but
Mhm.
everybody else seemed to be understanding it. They had these crazy notes, crazy diagrams, whatever it was. And I was like, bro, have I messed up? Like, what's going on here? I thought I was smart, and I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it. And then over time, you just realize it's not the case. You know, everybody's got their different ways of learning, and just because somebody seems to be having their stuff together doesn't necessarily mean that that's the case. Um, so yeah, like you said about like not comparing yourself to people at med school, like that is definitely an important lesson. A hard one, especially when everyone's competing, but very, yeah, very important, I think.
Mhm.
Does anybody else have any last questions, or can I'll ask my other question if I don't see any more come through? I'll ask mine. Um, Effectively, it was in regards to like your long-term management of stress. Um, I feel like my question is how are you able to stop yourself from only seeing like the short-term stuff? So when you've got lots of extracurricular things going on, and medicine commitments and lots of things happening, let's say week by week, loads of things are happening. How are you able to take that step back, because it's okay to say in theory, but the actual act of taking the step back and looking at the long-term management of your stress can be quite challenging, especially when things are really, really like hectic. So how have you been able to do that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and it's definitely easier said than done. I mean, when you're really stressed out and you've got 1,000 different things to do, and then you have to take time out of your day to relax, it kind of seems counterintuitive. Like, why would I want to do that? Um, but I guess just like being disciplined about it and understanding that taking even just 20 minutes out isn't going to hurt. It's not gonna Things aren't going to fall apart if you just take 20 minutes out to go for a walk or just watch something on Netflix or watch a YouTube video. So I guess having the foresight to know that it's okay to relax a little bit. In fact, it will help you further down the line. And it doesn't even have to be for a long time. Like I said, it can literally be just 15-20 minutes where you just take a breather and do something else for a little bit and then come back refreshed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna implement it. I feel like for me anyway, this year is kind of a bit of a breather from medicine, just because the workload is definitely a lot less and the content doesn't feel as heavy. So it's easier to, there's more time where you feel like you're able to take that step back and reflect on what's going on. So yeah, definitely taking what you've just said on board. We've got another question here. It is regarding your ABCDE approach. Okay, no, maybe it's not. I think I misread it. But it is saying, what advice would you give to a student that is considering leaving medical school due to stress?
Um, I'd say before it gets to that point, reach out to someone and talk about what you're thinking about and why you feel that way. I think often in our minds, things seem a lot bigger than they actually are. And we kind of play it up a lot more than it needs to be played up in your mind. And often just really like having that release and talking to someone helps you rationalize why you feel that way. And if it is the case and you still want to leave medical school, then at least you didn't make that decision alone, and you had some sort of input or some sort of insight into your thought process and why you were feeling that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I suppose once somebody has got to the point where you're considering, like seriously considering leaving medical school, you want to make sure that they've gotten all the support possible from all of the different avenues, especially ones that the medical school provides, and maybe also externally as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it would be quite scary, and I imagine it's not as far away as people might think. It just depends on how you manage your stress, and it could be quite easy to get so overwhelmed that you don't think that this is like it's that you can kind of continue. So I guess I think it's important that people know that it's okay to take a step back. Like it's okay to fail an exam, for example, and to go again in the summer, or if you really need to take a year out, and just get your head where it's supposed to be so that you're able to come back to medicine like refreshed, or if you need to repeat a year or any of these different things, they're just like it's part of the process sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, that's yeah. But hopefully, when people watch this talk, they're not going to be in those positions there, and everybody will be able to manage their stress very, very well. We won't have anybody who is thinking about these things here. But if you do, then that's what you should do, right? Sweet. I don't have any more questions, and I don't see any more coming through like on the chat to me. So I think we'll end the talk there, Isla.
Okay.
Thank you very much. To anybody else, well, anybody who's watching this talk afterwards, yeah, you can get involved with TAMS and with the rest of our work. There are links to the rest of our talks on our Instagram page and on our YouTube channel. I think we've got a visual, which we will, or something we can put up so people can see that. But yes, Isla, thank you so much. It's been great. I'm gonna just be, but like I got more questions as well, but I can't let everybody have the questions that I have in it. So I'm gonna give those to you separately after the talk.
Mhm.
But yes, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I hope you enjoyed the talk. And we've got another series coming out for final year medics. So if you know a final year medic, tell them to tell a friend. You know, it's going to be good. Lots of gems coming up soon. So yes, enjoy. Take care, guys.